It was Sunday, August 4th, 2024, just past midday inside HMP Manchester. Word spread quickly through the wings. Someone had been stabbed. But this wasn't just any inmate. The victim was a man whose name once carried weight on the streets of Salford. Jamie Rothwell, the fugitive kingpin who had built a shadow empire from the Spanish coast, running his network through encrypted phones and trusted lieutenants. Months earlier, detectives had been closing in on another tangled web of organised crime, a county lines network stretching from the alleys of Liverpool to the quiet roads of Congleton. They called it the Scouse-Jeff line. 3 men would soon see their empire collapse after a single, precise police strike, all sparked by what seemed like routine incidents. A text, a photograph, and a roadside stop on the M6 for a driver using his phone. 3 moments, 3 different operations, each beginning with something ordinary, and each leading back to the same uncomfortable truth. In modern Britain, no criminal truly disappears. Every move leaves a trail. Welcome to Truth Unraveled. Let's get straight into the story. Jamie Rothwell's name had been familiar to Greater Manchester Police long before he became one of Salford's most notorious underworld figures. Born and raised in the area, he grew up surrounded by a culture of control, intimidation, and easy violence. By his mid-20s, he had outgrown street brawls and petty disputes, stepping into the world of serious, organised crime. He became a trusted enforcer for the men behind the anti-team, one faction in a bloody feud that defined nearly a decade of criminal life in Greater Manchester. The rivalry began around 2014. 2 gangs, the A-Team, fronted by Stephen Britton and tied to slain boss Paul Massey, known locally as Mr. Big, and the Anti-Team, led by Michael Carroll, once Massey's ally before the split, fought for control, respect, and territory across Salford's profitable drug trade. Rothwell served as Carroll's right-hand man, the one called when threats needed muscle. The 2 sides had once shared the same bars and business circles, but greed and revenge pushed them into open warfare. Drive-by shootings, petrol bomb attacks, and arson became almost routine across Salford and Wigan. Then, in March 2015, the violence caught up with Rothwell himself. At a car wash in Ashton in Makerfield, gunmen opened fire as he stepped out of his vehicle. CCTV captured him clutching his stomach and stumbling into a nearby office, bleeding heavily. Somehow he survived, but the message was unmistakable. He was no longer untouchable. Forensic work later revealed that the same firearm used in that attack had also been used in the later shooting of 7-year-old Christian Hickey and his mother, a tragedy that horrified Britain and showed how far the feud had spiraled. And if you want a full deep dive into that brutal Salford gang war, let me know in the comments. It's a story that deserves its own documentary. After the shooting, Rothwell's life became a cycle of near misses, arrests, and courtroom appearances. In October 2020, following extradition from Spain, he went on trial alongside gunman Mark Fellows, accused of plotting to murder 2 members of the A-Team. The case collapsed, and Rothwell walked free. Within weeks, he vanished, again, this time for good. He resurfaced months later in Barcelona, living in a high-rise apartment in the Diagonal Mar district. Surrounded by money, contacts, and technology, he quietly rebuilt his empire. Using encrypted EncroChat phones under the handle Live Long, he communicated with his network back in the UK, issuing orders, arranging shipments, and even discussing violence. From that sleek apartment overlooking the Mediterranean, he could command operations hundreds of miles away with just a few coded messages. But the system he believed was unbreakable was already cracking behind the scenes. We'll get to that in a moment. Behind every organised crime boss stands a web of loyal specialists, men who move the cash, the drugs, and the weapons. Rothwell's network was no different. From Barcelona, he controlled a crew spread across Greater Manchester, Wigan, Warrington, and Bolton. Each had a distinct role, and together they kept his empire running, until those very encrypted chats became the evidence that destroyed them. At the centre was Craig Mackinson of Winstanley, Wigan, known on EncroChat as Top and Dr. Shugart. He was Rothwell's operations manager, responsible for coordinating drug, cash, and firearm movements across the Northwest. Investigators later uncovered photos of bundles of cash on his phone, the same kitchen furniture visible in his own home. He trusted EncroChat so completely that he even sent his personal postcode in a message about a cocaine delivery. When he wasn't dealing, he was texting Rothwell from his hot tub, discussing shipments. Calm, organised, and indispensable, Mackinson was the network's engine. Then came James Close, 44, from Lee, known as Bull Sniffer and Sick Plane. He served as the fixer, connecting Rothwell's inner circle to street-level dealers. When police later searched his Henry Street home, they found a full drug processing setup, a hydraulic press, digital scales, bags, gloves, and even CCTV to watch the door. His fingerprints were on both the press and cocaine packaging. To Rothwell, he was reliable, a worker who never questioned orders. To detectives, he was the thread that helped unravel the chain. Then there was Callum Morris, 33, from Atherethorton, volatile, dangerous, and the person who turned plans into action. Morris handled firearms procurement and was implicated in a plot involving a disguised attack. Messages recovered showed him asking about models and calibers, and police later say he arranged the purchase and movement of high-powered weapons. He was not the accountant or the courier. He was the one who carried out the business's most violent demands. Logistics were further supported by figures such as Zach Rock, 35, from Edgerton, Bolton, a former rigger turned broker who organised imports of cocaine and ketamine and managed storage points. Rock's role was quiet but essential, ensuring product reached the right hands and that cash collections were completed. When the net tightened, Rock fled abroad, moving from Spain to Dubai, an attempt to stay one step ahead that ultimately failed. Beneath them operated a secondary layer of facilitators. John Moore handled the financial side, keeping the accounts and helping launder proceeds through shell businesses. John Stankus, older and experienced, relied on long-standing contacts to source and move product. Scott Davies coordinated distribution of heroin and cocaine in local markets. Terence MacDonald's role centered on weapons procurement and storage. Each figure had a specific role, and together they created a resilient chain, until small slips began to appear. By 2020, Jamie Rothwell's organisation had become a finely tuned machine, a structured hierarchy moving massive quantities of Class A and B drugs across the Northwest. Investigators later estimated over 200 kilograms of cocaine, ketamine, and amphetamines had passed through the network, worth more than £26 million. The operation ran like a business. Shipments arrived from Spain and the Netherlands, were split and packaged in hubs around Manchester, Wigan, Warrington, and Liverpool, then distributed through coded orders on EncroChat, the platform Rothwell believed was unbreakable. Money became tickets. Guns were tools. In one chat, Craig Mackinson asked, "Any Glocks about?" Rothwell replied, "No bro, soon though, borrow for now." Another message showed Callum Morris posing with an AK-47 after paying £10,000. Rothwell joked, "Makes me hard, bro." He bragged of sending 300 straps home, referring to firearms. Couriers moved cocaine in hidden compartments, and laundered millions through car washes, shell firms, and fake invoices. To detectives, it resembled a corporate supply chain, except its currency was fear. Orders flowed down in code, enforced through violence and loyalty. At the top, Rothwell believed encryption made him invisible. He couldn't have been more wrong. By early 2020, European investigators were already inside EncroChat. Operation Venetic, led by the NCA and Europol, exposed thousands of criminal handles, including one that stood out: Livelong. Analysts traced the handle to drug and gun activity in Greater Manchester and Cheshire. The key breakthrough came from a single holiday photo, an image of a skyline that analysts matched to Barcelona's Diagonal Mar. That picture turned anonymous texts into a real location. Spanish surveillance confirmed Rothwell's apartment. Undercover officers mapped the building, while UK analysts linked his messages to CCTV, vehicle records, and bank data. Piece by piece, the Empire's digital trail formed a complete picture. In April 2020, from that same Barcelona flat, Rothwell ordered a revenge hit on the rival Cullen Group. Messages showed him receiving photos of Liam Byrne Jr.'s home, writing, "I'm going to do all them soon." 2 days later, a gunman disguised as a pizza courier shot David Barnes, Byrne's stepfather, in Warrington. He survived, but police later proved the hit had been directed by Rothwell through EncroChat, with Callum Morris, Lewis Fitzpatrick, and Aaron Breton acting on the ground. For Operation Venetic, it became a defining case. Encrypted orders leading straight to gunfire. Then, one May morning in 2020, Spain's national police struck. Tactical GEO officers stormed Rothwell's apartment in Sant Adrià de Besòs, finding the fugitive half asleep. Handcuffed and dazed, he reportedly smirked. Big celebration. Unaware the system had been compromised for months. As he was detained, simultaneous raids hit Wigan, Atherton, Lee, and Bolton. Police recovered 20 kilograms of cocaine, £4 million in cash, and multiple firearms. In one morning, Rothwell's empire fell. In March 2021, he was extradited to Britain and placed in HMP Wakefield. But during his trial at Manchester Crown Court, news broke that he'd been stabbed in HMP Manchester, a brutal attack that delayed proceedings. When hearings resumed, the swagger was gone. In February 2025, Rothwell pleaded guilty to drug, firearms, and violent conspiracies. Jamie Rothwell, 43 years. Craig Mackinson, 38 years. Callum Morris, 38 years. James Close, 36 years. Zach Rock, 18 years. Andrew Akers, 339, 10 years 2 months. Scott Davies, 36, 8 years 6 months. Terence MacDonald, 34, 8 years. John Stankus, 70, 6 years. John Moore, 38, 1 year 3 months. Together, the sentences totaled nearly 207 years, one of Greater Manchester's biggest organised crime prosecutions. Rothwell's downfall signalled the collapse of one empire, but across the northwest, the trade didn't die with him. Smaller outfits were still alive, operating quietly in the shadows he left behind. It started as another county lines network, small enough to stay under the radar, but lucrative enough to justify the risk. From the terraced backstreets of Liverpool, a single phone number became the link between city suppliers and users hundreds of miles away, stretching into Congleton, Warrington, and neighbouring Cheshire towns. The number was known locally as the Scouse Jeff line, a familiar name that popped up in morning texts advertising new drops and fresh deals. At the top of the operation sat Anthony Fox, a 32-year-old from Liverpool. To most, he seemed like any other small-time dealer. Low profile, quiet, blending easily into the city's drug scene. But behind that calm front, Fox was running the show, controlling supply chains, managing communications, and recruiting new runners. He kept his hands clean, using burner phones and pay-as-you-go SIMs to stay untraceable. When investigators later analyzed seized handsets, they uncovered thousands of mass messages, the digital heartbeat of a county lines network that had been active almost every single day. Working under Fox were young men and teenagers, trusted, disposable, and often desperate for money. One of them was Hayden Brooks, barely out of his teens when he started making regular runs into Cheshire. His job was simple: move the product and collect the cash. Sometimes several trips in one day. Brooks lived in trap houses, homes taken over from vulnerable addicts, packaging deals and waiting for orders to come through. It was a routine replicated across the country, the same story unfolding under 100 different line names. Then there was James Spindler, a 24-year-old from Warrington who acted as the link between Liverpool and Cheshire. He organised the drops, found stash spots, and kept operations running when others were arrested or burned out. To his contacts, he was just a middleman. But to detectives, he was the key connection, proving how far the network reached. By 2024, the Scouse Jeff line, along with dozens of similar ones, had drawn the attention of Operation Toxic, part of the National Crime Agency's Project Medusa, a nationwide drive to dismantle county lines gangs. Detectives from Cheshire Police and Merseyside Police began mapping phone movements, analysing call patterns, and tracking bank deposits. Bit by bit, they pieced together a supply route that seemed ordinary on the surface, but revealed just how coordinated the operation really was. It was just one line on a mobile phone, but it connected two worlds, from Liverpool's dense estates to the quiet suburbs of Cheshire. Specialist teams under Operation Toxic began charting its route, following cell site data from tower blocks in Liverpool to quiet cul-de-sacs in Congleton and Warrington. Every message left a trail. Every call linked another dealer, courier, or customer. From this data, investigators built an intricate web of contacts, cross-referencing numbers with names already known to organised crime units. Once the picture was complete, the orders went out for simultaneous arrests. In April and May 2025, coordinated dawn raids hit multiple addresses across Liverpool and Cheshire. Officers from Merseyside Police's Project Medusa, backed by Cheshire Constabulary's Serious and Organised Crime Unit, forced entry before sunrise, catching suspects in bed. Searches uncovered exactly what detectives expected, and more. Bundles of cash, dozens of burner phones, quantities of heroin and crack cocaine already divided into street deals, ready to go. Digital forensics matched the seized handsets to the Scouse Jeff line. Each broadcast text, each customer delivery, became another link in the chain leading directly to Anthony Fox and his crew. In the aftermath, Detective Sergeant Shah McNee from the County Lines Task Force publicly praised the operation, promising that police would continue targeting those who prey on the vulnerable and profit from addiction. By the time the final arrests were made, the Scouse Jeff line had fallen silent. What had once been a daily stream of messages to users was now evidence sealed inside an evidence bag. Another line shut down, another network gone. The message was unmistakable. Every closed line meant one less route for drugs, fear, and exploitation to move through. From encrypted empires to local county lines, the greed driving the trade knows no borders. In July 2025, the case concluded at Liverpool Crown Court, where prosecutors presented overwhelming digital and forensic evidence. Anthony Fox, 32, from Liverpool, received 5 years and 6 months in prison. Hayden Brooks was handed 3 years for his role as a courier. James Spindler, 24, was sentenced to 2 years and 6 months for conspiracy. In total, 11 years of combined jail time. But even as that line was cut, another was already on the move. Not through phone messages this time, but by car. It was just after midday on a warm August afternoon in 2024 when officers from Cheshire Police's Roads and Crime Unit stopped a silver Ford Mondeo heading south on the M6 near Sandbach. At first, it seemed like a minor stop. The driver had been spotted using his mobile while driving. But what began as a routine traffic pullover soon turned into one of the biggest roadside drug seizures in the county that year. The driver identified himself as Mark Danson, a 44-year-old from Burnley, Lancashire. He was calm and polite, producing his documents and answering questions, but officers quickly sensed something was off. His demeanor was nervous, his chatter oddly forced. When asked to open the car's boot, Danson hesitated, positioning himself awkwardly between the officers and the vehicle. He laughed nervously, tried small talk, and shifted the topic away. Experienced eyes recognized the signs. Officers asked him to step aside and began a formal search under the Misuse of Drugs Act. Inside the backseat, they discovered shopping bags filled with 62.5 kilograms of amphetamine, tightly wrapped and sealed. The haul carried an estimated street value of up to £100,000, destined for circulation across the northwest. At the roadside, Danson was immediately arrested on suspicion of possession with intent to supply a Class B drug. During interviews, he admitted agreeing to move the drugs to pay off a debt, insisting he'd fallen into deep trouble and hadn't realized how serious the job was. His vehicle was seized, the drugs sent for forensic analysis, and his phone data extracted by Cheshire Police's Serious and Organised Crime Unit. The evidence was conclusive. Messages and call logs connected him to known figures in the regional drug scene. Later, body cam footage released by Cheshire Police captured the moment the officers uncovered the stash. A calm search that turned into a major bust within seconds. In February 2025, Danson appeared before Chester Crown Court, where the court heard how he had acted as a courier. He was sentenced to 7 years and 2 months in prison. From a selfie in Spain to a phone ping on the M6, one truth remains constant. Crime always leaves a trail, and every trail ends the same way. What do you think about these cases and the sentences handed down? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown insightful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next episode of Truth Unraveled.